The story was supposed to be familiar, almost comforting in its routine. A beloved princess steps into the public eye, supports worthy causes, raises the next generation of heirs, and in time, recedes into the background of royal pageantry. Catherine's journey was following that well-worn arc, until the test results of early 2024 detonated the script. A diagnosis of aggressive abdominal cancer not only threatened her life, but jolted the monarchy at a moment when King Charles III, himself recovering from serious illness, was already mapping out the future of his reign. The past 18 months have shown that the Princess of Wales is not merely surviving that plot twist, she is turning it into the catalyst for a profound reimagining of the modern monarchy. Her return to public duties in mid-2025 coincided with King Charles's unprecedented decision to hand her executive authority over vast portions of the Duchy of Cornwall, an estate whose farms, forests, coastal lettings and investment portfolio generate well over £100 million in profit each year. In effect, Catherine has become a chief operating officer tucked inside a tiara, responsible for decarbonizing rural holdings, greening tenant farms, publishing open ESG accounts, overhauling staff development and piloting low-cost housing on royal land. To grasp how radical that is, one must step back a century. Royal consorts from Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, to Princess Margaret and Diana wielded soft power. They lent a smile, a patronage and occasionally a sharp opinion, yet the machinery of estates and court remained the preserve of kings, princes and grey-suited courtiers. Even Prince Philip, whose modernizing zeal can hardly be overstated, was never given legal control over the duchy or the crown estate. So when palace aides briefed that Catherine would sign her name to the ledgers and chair monthly investment committees, the corridors of Whitehall and the gentlemen's clubs of St. James's vibrated with an astonished hush. What persuaded Charles to transfer that responsibility? Partly sheer pragmatism. At 76, the king understands that climate deadlines and social expectations move faster than hereditary succession cycles. He has long preached sustainability, rare breeds at Highgrove, organic biscuits on the royal train, yet implementation, at scale now demands a fresh public face. Catherine, armed with a degree in art history, but also professional certificates in sustainable finance earned quietly during her convalescence, fits the bill. She has the trust of Gen Z Britons. Polling by Ipsos places her favorable rating above 70% among under 35s, and the diplomatic Polish to keep landowners, ministers and Buckingham Palace traditionalists at the same table. But the choice was also personal. During months of tandem treatment, Charles and Catherine found themselves swapping hospital corridors and private notes on resilience. One senior courtier describes late-night fireside talks at Windsor, in which the monarch confessed fears about leaving the crown unready for William. Catherine, in turn, laid out a vision of a monarchy that publishes staff mental health metrics alongside its annual accounts, that live streams tenant farmer roundtables, and that allows a future queen consort to be judged not by wardrobe budgets, but by carbon budgets. Charles listened, one aide recalls, and decided the firm could no longer afford incrementalism. The transition began quietly. While Catherine endured cycles of chemo and immunotherapy, analysts from KPMG and PwC were seconded to Clarence House. They briefed her on the Duchy's forestry offsets, its offshore wind holdings and its rural broadband gaps. She Zoom-called tenant families in Cornwall and Herefordshire, not as a ribbon-cutting VIP, but as an incoming landlord who wanted to hear grievances about rent review cycles and nitrate quotas. Imagine a duchess parsing spreadsheets at 11:30 after a drip line, marveled one consultant. Yet those late-night notes would later inform a 3-year strategy to channel £50 million of surplus into regenerative agriculture trials and youth apprenticeships in port towns hit by Brexit trade shifts. When the palace finally confirmed her cancer-free status in June 2025, the relief flooding social media was matched by a parallel shockwave inside the firm. Catherine would not return merely as patron of early years charities, but as a power broker. In the same breath, Charles made 3 logistical changes that underscore the scale of his ambition. First, the office of the Prince and Princess of Wales absorbed the Duchy's sustainability unit, effectively giving her a permanent staff of 50 agronomists, accountants and climate researchers. Second, the Princess Royal's former private secretary, revered in Whitehall for ruthless efficiency, shifted to Kensington Palace as Catherine's chief of staff. Third, the royal household's HR director was told to align the palace mental health policy with the standards Catherine helped formulate for NHS frontline workers. Not everyone is delighted. In drawing rooms from Belgravia to Balmoral, whispers question whether a mother of 3 recovering from illness should shoulder balance sheet pressures that would daunt a FTSE CEO. Traditionalists grumble that a consort should inspire by presence rather than policy. Newspapers once bruised by William and Catherine's privacy lawsuits wonder how accessible the new Duchy data will truly be. Even within Windsor walls, there is quiet anxiety that if the reforms sputter, Catherine's personal popularity might shield the institution in the short run, while eroding the mystique that lends monarchy its gravitational pull. The princess seems unfazed. Aides describe a working routine that begins at dawn with meditation and ends by 8 p.m. to ensure bedtime reading for Louis. She fields calls from the Soil Association, the Bank of England and YouTube mental health influencers with equal composure. On weekends, she still pulls on wellies to plant saplings at Anmer Hall, testing carbon capture methods that may scale across Duchy estates. Her mantra, overheard in one staff meeting, measure twice, empathize always, move forward. The first public proof point will come in November, when she unveils an online portal allowing any citizen to trace Duchy rent flows, woodland biodiversity audits, and employee well-being scores. It is modest by corporate governance standards, revolutionary by regal ones. Skeptics predict a backlash from anti-monarchist MPs probing tax loopholes. Supporters argue that sunlight is precisely what will keep the crown relevant to a TikTok generation skeptical of secrecy. Meanwhile, William is orchestrating a complementary shakeup of working royals. With the Duke of Gloucester approaching retirement and the Princess Royal resolved to reduce overseas travel, the heir apparent wants cousins front and center, who exude authenticity rather than aristocratic distance. Zara Tindall will assume the racing portfolio and equine welfare patronages after her triumphs at Badminton and Burghley. Mike Tindall, leveraging rugby fame and podcast reach, will champion youth sport and veterans' mental health. Their down-to-earth attitudes, William believes, will offset the gilded image of palace life. Even the Sussex question, haunting the family since Harry and Meghan's exit, figures into this calculus. Palace sources hint that Charles hopes Catherine's approach to transparency might create safe pathways for occasional ceremonial collaboration with the California branch, restoring some familial unity without reopening the public funding debate. Time will tell whether that aspiration survives the headlines, sure to accompany Prince Harry's forthcoming documentary series. For now, attention focuses on Catherine herself. Her public image, once dominated by fashion blogs praising the Kate effect, is broadening. The rose named in her honor, planted at Therapeutic Gardens from Colchester to Edinburgh, is blooming white with a blush of resilient pink. On its RHS label visitors read her words, "Plant the future you wish to see." In boardrooms, charities and tenant farmhouses, observers are watching to see if she can do precisely that, plant a royal future that is auditable, compassionate, and commercially astute. Whether her reforms flourish or falter, the Princess of Wales has already achieved something unprecedented. She has made the position of consort one of visible executive responsibility. That alone will shape how future generations, her daughter Charlotte perhaps, conceive of royal service. In eras past, the story might have ended with a convalescent princess returning to ribbon cuttings. Catherine chose a different narrative, scarred yet undeterred, determined to wield spreadsheets as deftly as a smile. The crown's quiet revolution now rests, in no small part, on her shoulders. ChatGPT.